Once again, we do not have the required quorum. So you can't go up even with the reduced amount. So we cannot go through with the formal part of the annual meeting or the election, or whatever it is. And the board will be meeting to decide how to go forward with some legal guidance, as we may have to, once again, attempt to reschedule like we did last year. That's something we'll have to look at. With that being said, we are going to go forward with the presentations, what has happened this year. The rental restriction amendment, as everyone is aware, it was submitted to the board with sufficient signatures as required by the Master Declaration. It was reviewed by legal counsel, and there was a little legal sufficiency issue with one of the language in the description of a property. The attorney redrafted or revised it in a legally sufficient format, and the board, on motion, adopted or essentially decided, in order to put this behind us and try to diffuse the acrimony and keep it from festering the community, to schedule a special meeting, probably in January, to address the submitted amendment. Due to the timing, it probably would have to be in the latter part of January. The exact date hasn't been scheduled, but basically, it would be in person or by proxy. It would not be the same type of voting as you have for the directors, because our documents do not provide for absentee voting with regard to amending the Master Declaration. And basically, that's where we're at on that.
So the most significant one probably is the statute that says any member may nominate himself. If a member can nominate himself, it needs to be on the ballot. And that essentially means that you can't have nominations from the floor, since we adopted, which is now permitted by Florida statute, voting by secret ballot, advanced voting, absentee voting, which certainly allows more people to express their views rather than demand they just come to the meeting. I think all of us felt that was a better system. We also changed the quorum, and obviously it didn't do much good. We reduced it from 30% to 20%, hoping that that would allow the annual meeting to proceed, and now we're 10% or so short of that number, so we'll have to consider what happens. In any event, we've changed this. I hope it's for the better. Our big issue now in terms of the board is we only had 3 candidates running for 4 positions. There is a vacancy. The board will be appointing someone to fill that vacant term, which will go for the next year. And we'd like anybody who's interested to fill out one of the intent to be candidates forms, which are available here at this meeting. And as soon as we know who's interested, the board will carefully consider everyone, and hopefully we'll pick a new director that will help the organization. Thank you.
Yes, Bill.
What were the major feedback, the major points from the comprehensive voter survey?
Well, I could take an hour.
Well, just if you could highlight, maybe just 4 key points.
Okay, just a couple of key points on the survey. We did survey on this issue of rentals, so that was one of the things, and that seemed to be very split. A lot of comments, both positive, wanting to keep rentals. We had a few of those, and we also had a few, or quite a few, that said just the opposite. So it was probably maybe kind of a 50-50 split on that particular issue. Some of the other things that we had, I'm trying to think of. Oh, the taxes. That was a big one. That had a 90% positive, which is we had hired a tax consultant to review all of the tax base for the community, which they did put out a report, and I'm sure, hopefully it helped some people. We haven't really had any feedback from people that have utilized that. He came back with some properties that were appraised at higher than what the market rate should be. And that's one of the things I think that we can do as a community is by pooling resources, we can do things like that more cost effective than if you would do it as an individual. So that was certainly a key benefit.
Yes, sir. Is there a reason why we wanted to restrict? I never heard the reason to restrict rentals. Is there there a problem?
It is a loaded question, this was an owner-initiated petition based on different issues and incidents that have occurred in the community, and that have upset owners in terms of conduct and other things. From what I understand, is the basis for changing the restrictions from nightly rentals to 30 days or more. I think is what they wanted, instead of short-term nightly rentals. Is what basically it doesn't eliminate the ability to rent. It just changes the minimum time period for single-family residents outside essentially Hammock Beach, is the way the amendment reads. That's my understanding of the background in terms of the petitioner's position.
Could I ask another question then?
Sure.
If they are acting different than somebody that's living there already, can't you call the police and tell them to be quiet or any of that stuff already, or no?
Yes. And that gets done when the rover responds. If we have a rover on duty at the time, our security people respond, and that is done. But that apparently, it has to be reported.
Any other comments or any other questions? Steve?
Yeah, are you keeping a log of covenant violations and breaking it down? Because in terms of parking and trash violations, it seems like there's a lot of people in this audience that seem to believe that it's a renter issue, whereas I'd like to know what the actual stats are showing, because there's very few rental homes even in the Ocean Hammock neighborhood.
Steve, I'll answer it this way. I think Donna takes her records of the violations of the community. We have those. And anyone is invited to, like all the committee meetings it's open to everyone. Truthfully, we were very disappointed on November 4th when we had a workshop. We expected more than 3 people. But I will say this, there is folks in the area, there are a rental agent who has dealt with the garbage problem. If we see a homeowner, we'll deal with it. The other part is, one of the complaints on the garbage has been, well, I'm going out of town, I want to leave a bag on the street because I'm not going to be here to take it back to my yard. Please call security. Rick has said his people, they're not that they're garbage folks. They will be happy to walk your trash can back to an inconspicuous place around your house. Because one of the problems by leaving a trash can in front of a home past a day is you're letting people know that there's nobody home. So we checked with their security company and they'll be happy to do that. So it's just not a rental issue, but we all had some type of garbage problems or yard waste problems. But they're becoming less and less from what I've seen.
Yeah, the question then is if it's constituted a business as opposed to for residential use of the owner, and there's certainly, take a look at your governing documents for it, and there's some implications there for tax implications that they would be responsible for. There's only so much the homeowner association can do on that, but if somebody's using it for a commercial property as opposed to a residential, there's a fine line between running a business out of your house and making money off of rentals, and that's something we would have to look at.
So rental isn't considered commercial, is what I'm saying. And how does the fire department or fire code meet with commercial and rental? If you can put 25 people in a home, because
let me answer it this way. There is a contract that is entered into between the renter and either the agency or the person who is renting the home, one or the other. If in fact you find that a home has more than the contract allows, notify, and this is why we're asking that the agency's number be of record. Notify that agency, because they can go to the Flagler Sheriff's Department, and Steve, correct me if I'm wrong, and ask that person to vacate the property if the rest of their week's rent is reimbursed. So, Roger?
Since I see Ed taking notes, I wanted to expand just a little bit on what Bill so eloquently said. My recollection is that the master declaration says you can't engage in a trade or business or commercial activity in any of the properties. and then it defines a residence as a structure intended for a single-family use, and then it goes on to say that a rental of a residence is not considered a commercial activity. And I think the point that he was making, or one of the points he was making, was that if a residence is being habitually rented to multiple families, is it still really a residence within the definition of a property used for a single family? And if it's not, then the exclusion of rentals as a commercial activity should not apply. And it would then be a trade or business and prohibited.
I'll look into it.
You're just not passionate on your Any other, Steve?
Yeah, legal costs here. You just had members from the audience ask for legal opinions based on what I believe is a fishing expedition, taking a look at whether a single-family home rental is a business. Is it board policy just to retroactively listen to people in the audience and start to do legal opinions? Or is there a procedure before legal costs are incurred by the association?
Steve, I'm not the president of the board, but I would answer this question. I think all of us pay in quarterly to our dues, and I think one of the things that we pay into as part of the budget is that we have a council on retainer. And I think any of us in the community who have an issue that deserves an answer, that we have every right to go to the board council to try to provide an answer for us. That's what we pay for. And as Rich does his budget, and if he finds out that we don't have enough in the legal side of the budget, then all of us will have to probably pay another $1 or $2, but then that budget will go out to the community and we'll make a decision. I have no problem personally asking our legal counsel any legit questions that the community needs and should have an answer to.
So are those,
That's my position, and I'm sure it'd be almost the same as council.
are those legal opinions going to be allowed to be accessed by members? Because I specifically asked as a member for one of those legal opinions and I was not. So if you're going to spend the money, who's going to have those opinions and are they going to be, and what's the policy of the board?
I would say that anytime, and I will ask this for Bill, anytime a question is asked of council from the community, that we then post it to Bill, who will then put it on the website to say, Mr. and Mrs. Jones, or questions asked from the community about parking, this is our legal counsel's answer.
We would give the information to that committee as opposed to a privileged communication between the board and legal counsel on a particular issue or litigation, especially pending litigation. And that's a very important aspect of it. Pending litigation, we would not normally share.
Ken, back up a great point on this.
Good, right.
It seems to me the attorney is the board's attorney. He's not our attorney. He's the board's attorney. Any question to the attorney should come from the board. Members cannot ask the attorney to provide legal advice. They can hire their own attorney if they want. The board has to authorize the attorney to go do legal work. You can't just go do legal work because someone in the community says, hey, go look at this for me.
If there's
the board requested legal advice, and so the board has to analyze the questions we raised today to decide which of those are pertinent to take the attorney.
If there's a question, and Terry, you're absolutely right, if there's a question that you would like answered, my email address is published, Ken's email address is published. As chairman of the Covenants Committee, if you have a question, email it to me. I will then forward it to Ken and to Ed to hopefully get an answer for you. And then it will then come from the board.